Hey, Andy here. New version of our software for FlashArray and FlashBlade came out the other day. Feature enhancements, security updates, you know, all the usual stuff when it comes to software upgrades. But I want to kind of walk you through how to do it for air-gapped clusters, because basically mine is right now. And we're going to go through the steps. It's pretty easy. It's not well documented publicly, but it is once you're a customer, and you'll have full access to the support site. But I just wanted to give kind of a high-level TLDR, actually go through it. And hopefully you can see how easy it is and pretty simple. Right now we're using on my array, I've got 6.7.2 and I've got 6.7.3 ready to go. The setup for this is copying two files, a SHA-1 and a ppkg, a package file, to each of the controllers. Underneath the hood, it's all running Ubuntu. Should be no problem to SSH in. You can SSH in as multiple different users. We do have to kind of move it to a specific directory, which is under the pure setup account. That's where they recommend putting it. Let me go ahead and SSH into the controllers, and I'll show you what it looks like. It's actually pretty cool. So what I can do, if we get into this, right, I can SSH into the VIP, right? So this will automatically take me to that first controller. If you're ever curious, I got some notes here I'm going to share. If you're ever curious what the network connections are, if you want to go directly into the controller, that's fine. That'll work. And then you've probably seen me run this command before. But basically, this is showing me all the active connections to the array, including the VIPs. So I have a vers0, which is the management VIP. And then I've also got the VIF, the file VIF. And you can see .11, and that's, by the way, what this clem array, here we go, that's what this clem array is, just a Etsy host entry, just to make it easy, so you don't have to type it out. But what's cool, what you'll see is that, notice it automatically says CT0, and that tells me that CT0 is the primary. Another way we can get it is we can look up the pure array list, and this will also tell me which is the primary and secondary controllers. And notice it also gives me the versions. So this is good to know, right? Just so you know which controller is running which version. When you're on the controller, I can run a command called pureboot list, and this will show me the two different versions that are available to this controller. And notice right now I've got 6.7.2 and 6.5.9. So when I got the array, it came with like 6.3. I went to 6.5 and then to 6.7, right, to get it upgraded in a pretty simple manner. It was a couple steps, but pretty straightforward. So one of the things I want to do in this upgrade is kind of show you the big picture steps, and that's going to be upgrading the secondary controller first. Now here's a cool little trick. What you can do is when you're into any of the controller, you can do SSH peer, and there's keys already there. Notice we're on CT1, so that's pretty cool. And we're going to CD to the pure setup account. And I've already pre-staged these files, and I'll show you how big the files are. It's like 5.3 gigs for the package, and then the SHA-1 is required. And the cool thing is, because now we're on the secondary controller, we've SSH'd through the primary controller, not a big deal. I can SSH directly there if I wanted to, using, so it's C10, so I could use the .9 address if I wanted to connect directly. But no big deal. So now we're on the secondary controller. We validated it's a secondary controller. We can actually go ahead. We're in the directory. We can go ahead and actually do the pureinstall. And this will take a few minutes to unpack. Now, the cool part about this upgrade is, especially because we're doing the secondary controller first, cluster's still online. Everything's still responsive. We'll go to the storage, file systems, volumes. See, I've got my test volume there for iSCSI. I've got my file system there, harvester. Yeah, I was doing harvester backups directly to the array. Kind of cool. Yeah, really, really cool kind of way to extend some of the backups. In fact, here I can, while the upgrade part is running, learn to type my password. Cool. I can go in here under backups and snapshots. We can see that I've already run a backup to NFS 1.8, because that was, if you don't remember, that was the interface for the file virtual interface. So again, that'll work regardless of which controller is live. And cool. So the first boot of the, so the install process is done. I'm sure if we do the boot list, as I hit up arrow 17 times. Oh, I didn't do it on this controller. Let's do it on this controller. Pure boot list. And we can see, okay, great. So we can see the star is current and the arrow is what's going to boot. So all we can do, well, basically what we can do right now is reboot this controller and it'll come back with 673. So let's go ahead and do that. And we can use the pureboot command again, reboot secondary. And this should kick us out, get us back into CT0. Oh, there we go. Ran the command. And what we can do is look at the array again. And we see how it says it's not ready, because that means it's actually rebooting right now. So that's a pretty good sign. This is landlord, entering giveback, portal is not open. See, it's offline. And by the way, that, you know, because we're still talking to the first controller, everything's great there. And this will take a minute to reboot. It usually takes, do this, maybe like a minute. We'll wait for that to come back. So we've already upgraded the one controller, the secondary controller, right? When this comes back online, it'll be running 673. And then what we can do is do the failover. We can do that with the puredb once the secondary is fully up and running. And the way we can validate that, let me just SSH in. Did I have it here? Yep. Is ping peer. Oh, peer's not known. Okay, maybe that's an SSH command. The other thing we can do is ping 68. Well, that's coming up. What do we set it to? So I'm looking at the management interface .9. Cool. We'll give that a sec to come up. I'll speed this up. Oh, you can hear the fans ramping up. Actually, I'm not going to speed this up. Feel free to just skip. This shouldn't take much longer. There we go. Now it's pinging. The fan ramp up is right as the controller comes back online. And so the power's on, the network's on. We'll wait for the software to check back in. In fact, we could probably SSH. And by the way, I do have my SSH keys there. Okay. Firmware is being checked on this controller. So that's cool. So it's running a firmware process on the controller. Still offline. I wonder if H-top's here. That'd be pretty cool if it was. Nope. Top. Good old classic top. IPMI tool. That's good. Pure admin CLI. I've never looked at this, by the way. I think it's kind of interesting. Still offline, so we got to wait another minute for it to come up. Chastity. It's probably a shell or something. Python, yeah. So the cool thing underneath the hood, if you can't tell, is it is running Ubuntu. It's running. Oh, nice broadcast. Controller continue running as usual. Cool. That's pretty cool that it just sends a broadcast out. And we should see this report back in a second. Let me see if it got rid of the MOTD. Yeah, it did. Nice. And let me run the controller list. Oh, there we go. Don't even have to. So the software's coming back up. And notice we've already upgraded to 673. When this status goes ready, we'll fail over the primary. Cool, we're ready. Now we'll go ahead and fail over the primary. And actually, clean my notes up while I'm doing this. And I'll put this in the show notes because it's really just the same set of commands, the same couple commands over and over again. So just to show you. So primary is 0, secondary is 1. Let's go ahead and run the failover. Give that a second. And notice we got a message already. Successfully started. Upgrade is now set to default, so that's good. This will take a second. It will potentially, yeah, log me out of the GUI. And this is because of how my network is set up. It's a simple network. And notice right now we're already running on 673. So now we've failed over to the primary controller. And if we did, nope, don't want to fail back. I want to get the controller status. It's so much easier than typing. And this tells me right now that the secondary controller is primary. Okay, and then CT1 is primary, CT0 is secondary, but it says SAN disabled landlord entering giveback, so it's still completing that giveback process. And there we go, it kicked me out. So let's go back in. Notice when I went back into that VIP, it took me right to CT1. It'll always take you to the primary. What I probably should have done is SSH directly into each controller and then just managed it that way. But in this case, we can SSH into the secondary controller. That's there. We can CD to the Pure setup account directory. We can see our files, our install files there. We can go, and before we do that, we can just, again, take a look at the boot list on the controller. We can see that it is, again, that same 672 and 659. Now we can go ahead and install 673. This will take a minute, but the good news is we don't have to fail back. Like, we can let this reboot on its own, and then it'll come back on its own. And then when we go into the controller list, we will see that it is 673, and it is secondary, and it'll hit a ready status. Okay. Do you guys want to see? Yeah. You don't need to see. I'll kind of speed this up and show that last scene in the video. But hopefully this kind of shows you the power of that uninterrupted, sorry, we call it non-disruptive upgrade, NDU. But hopefully it shows you how easy it can be done. Just SSH a few tools, and once you get the packages on, and you can rsync, or there are actual USB ports on the front of the arrays. I don't think the health check shows it. We go to the dashboard. We can go to hardware health, right? So that's because of the controllers down. Up here in the upper right, there's a USB port directly on the front of the array. So you can plug it in that way and mount it on within each controller. There's one for each controller. Mount it on a USB drive and go that way. Cool. Setup. Let's get the status. Cool. And at this point, we actually got to reboot. One more thing we got to do. So we did the install. Now we just got to reboot the secondary to take advantage of the reboot. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this a little informative and shows the power of the FlashArray and Purity software. And like always, if you have any questions, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. And have a great day.